morning. Happy Friday. Um, I'm having my tea today. We're gonna have a little chat today about what happened this week and really who cares really what happened with the banks? Who cares? So we all know there was an issue with Silicon Valley Bank. There was also an issue with a couple other banks, two other banks. And I want to get into that today. And we're also going to talk about why you should care or not care, and how we're going to recession proof, inflation proof, bullshit proof our lives. Because I don't know about you, like I'm tired of being in reaction mode, about like, oh, what should I be scared of today? What should I be scared of? No, let's not. Okay, I'm so tired of that. So, okay, Silicon Valley Bank was the big news story of the week. A $300 billion bank had liquidity issues. And what that means essentially, I mean, like, I love these words, liquidity issues. I could say I'm having liquidity issues. I could say I'm having cash flow problems. But when a bank says it, somehow it's like, it's okay, right? It's okay that they're having liquidity issues. So fancy. Essentially, what happened was they bought bonds a while back, okay? And there's this kind of like teeter-totter effect with bond yields and interest rates. And so if one goes up, the other goes down. And so as interest rates are going up, bond yields are going down. Now, what I'd like to point out, like this is nerdy financial stuff. Like I learned that when I took the Series 7, okay? All of these fancy bankers, everyone at the Fed should know that that is going to be a repercussion of increasing interest rates. And yet somehow we're also surprised that the bad investments, a lot of the bad investments that Silicon Valley Bank made were actually with treasury bonds. Okay, and it has to do with the yields. It has to do with the fact that they needed cash on hand now because there's so many people who wanted to take money out of the bank now, and they did not have it, and then they had to sell some of their treasury bonds, and they ended up taking a loss on that because of the yield issue. So, and that's like in a nutshell what I believe happened. So Janet Yellen, I swear, she remind you of like, here's what she reminds me of. Like I remember, I think it was high school. I think it was high school. There was this lady who I had to turn in some paperwork to officially graduate. And it's not like my grades were on the rocks or anything like that. I was planning to go to college. Everything was fine. And I remember like there was a lady at the front office that was like holding hostage something that I needed to graduate. And I had to like suck up for her to actually do her job. And that's who Janet Yellen reminds me of. She's like that high school guidance counselor who wields too much power. She's like that person, okay? So she stands up there and she's like, everything's great, everything's fine, the banking system is wonderful. Well, if Silicon Valley Bank has had this issue with the treasury bonds, don't you think other banks have had the same issues? But again, if we're continuing to raise interest rates, we're in this environment where interest rates are on the rise. And I just now realized I didn't even turn on my ring light today, so maybe I'll do that. If we're in this high interest rate environment, I don't know if that's better, whatever. Why is this a surprise to anybody? I don't know. So one thing that the Fed did this week was they created like a savings account for banks. And essentially a bank can go and apply for a loan if they're getting wobbly, if they're like having a hard time managing their bank. Okay, so a couple things on that. Technically, FDIC insurance is supposed to be doing that. And how that works is the bank is supposed to put a certain amount of money in the insurance pile, right? Like you pay your car insurance every month, right? Or every quarter or every year. FDIC is supposed to have this same effect. So if really banks are paying the appropriate rates to cover their deposits, they should already be covered. Okay. So then, so this fund that the Fed is setting up is so banks can apply to get this money to help them out. First of all, this money is being created out of thin air. And I love how our president's like, no taxpayer will pay the brunt, blah, blah, blah. You can say whatever you want. Okay, we're going to pay for it now or we're going to pay for it later. And why do I say that? Because either we pay for it now out of the taxpayers fund or we pay for it later because you just created money out of thin air, causing inflation. Some more. Okay, so either we pay for it now or we pay for it later. We're going to pay for it. Okay. So let's not kid ourselves saying taxpayers aren't going to bear the brunt of whatever. It happened. It did. That's what you did. That's what you did this week. Okay. You created money out of thin air. So, what if, and by the way, while we're talking about this, like, do you see how this system that we're in is creating more havoc? And then there's like, well, there's havoc. And I'm like, you created it. So why are you surprised? These people are supposed to be in charge. And here's the thing that I don't get. Now, my professional background is in finance. I have not been a banker ever. I worked in corporate finance for a long time. I was a financial advisor for a little while and found out that that wasn't my jam. But I am just a nerd. I'm just someone who likes to research and figure this stuff out. I always think to myself, shouldn't these people be smarter than me? Shouldn't these people have economists with their PhDs and blah, blah, blah? Shouldn't they know what's going on? Shouldn't they know how to recover the economy? Something to think about. So, my question for you is, because people are getting freaked out. People are like, oh, I'm going to go to the bank and get my coffee tin ready and get my holes dug so I can bury in the backyard. If everyone went to the bank who did that, what would happen? It would crash the system. It would crash the system because how our system works is we don't physically have the dollars that everyone puts in the bank. Like the bank isn't like Scrooge McDuck and sitting on all that money. The money is elsewhere and it's working because that's how the bank makes money, right? It's called fractional lending. Okay, again, this sounds so math nerdy, right? It's like, oh, well, we're just doing fractional lending, meaning they're making money on your money. Okay. So if everyone went to the bank and said, I want my money, that bank would go out of business. And here's the thing that here's the issue I have with this FDIC, with this Fed fund for banks. I would like to think that at one point in time we had a free market, but we don't, okay? Because what happens in a free market is if you're a bad business owner, if your business sucks, if nobody wants your product or you're a bad manager or whatever it is, you go out of business. That's a result of having a free market. This stuff is muddying the waters of a possible free market. So when people talk about how the US economy is so great, my question is, are we propping up the economy with all of this federal spending? Or is everything really great? I don't know. You come to your own conclusion on that. So, am I running to the bank to get all of my money out? No. No. Do I think it's probably good to have $100 on hand? Sure. But I think, like I said, if everyone took everything out of their account, it wouldn't have, it would just crash the system. That's why there are banks, is so you don't have to have a million coffee cans buried in your backyard. Okay, so here's what I always think about. This information is nice. What should I be focused on? What should I be doing? What does this information, what does this do for me? So I think that we should all be looking at remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from school? Okay. At the top, there's safety and security. So there's food, water, shelter. Make sure that you got the basics covered. Okay. And it's funny whenever there's a hiccup in the financial system, like I'm always like, okay, hon, I just placed an order with Thrive Market or Vitacost or whatever. And I'm sure he knows by now that, I'll have 20 pounds of flour and 5 containers of peanut butter, something like that. I mean, that's something you could do right now if you're concerned about safety and security, if you're concerned about our food system. That's something you can do right now. Okay. Past that, so that's like the baby step. Past that, I think we really need to start looking with a discerning eye on how we can create a system for yourself that is going to provide you security. What do I mean by that? So right now, and you probably heard me talk about, like, we're in the matrix. Like, right now, we're in this financial system where our money is in a bank or it's in an institution or it's in whatever. And here's the thing, those dollars, also referred to as assets under management, if you're someone in the financial services industry, those assets under management, like, you're making money on that. Maybe your yield, maybe your return was like 10% or whatever for the year. And by the way, if you're in the stock market right now, I can guarantee you didn't get 10% for the year, because the market has been total poop this past year. So the system that your money is in is, you gave your money to an institution so you could make that 10% or whatever you wanted to make. They took your money and they're doing other things with it, and they're making money on your money. So I just want to acknowledge first, like, we're in this system, we're in the financial matrix where you're giving your money and they're making money on your money. And there are other ways that you can make money on your money and that you have control of it. And that's what I've been looking at for the past year or so, me and my husband, because it's not that I don't trust our financial system. Well, maybe I don't, but what I'm really concerned about is, how do I make sure that if there is something that happens that's outside of my control, like a crash of the banking system, or maybe my bank went out of business or whatever, that I can still create a structure for myself where I'm providing financial stability and security. And let me tell you, this doesn't happen overnight. This is like the long game, okay? So let me tell you about this lady that I knew a while ago. Okay, this is when I was an advisor. And she tells me, and she was a realtor, and she was very, very hesitant to put her money in anything, like not in the S&P, nothing. And she's like, I'm into real estate, I'm saving, and I'm going to pay cash for a house. And I'm like, okay. But I'm like, okay, well, how much cash do you have saved? And she says $250,000. 200, like, you can't find something to do with the 250 you got in the bank, right? And so you think about that. She has $250,000 in the bank, and she's probably thinking, oh, this is great because it's FDIC insured. Okay. But what she doesn't realize is the flip side of the coin is she lost out on making money on her money every year that she has it in the bank. And of course, the people at the bank want her to keep it in the bank because they're using her money to make money. But at the same point in time, like, she's stuck in fear and being like, oh, well, I only want to put my money in something safe. Create a system for yourself. Maybe that system is slow and steady like a snail. Maybe that system is, I'm going to, buy a business. I'm going to have a building that I'm going to rent out. I'm going to do whatever, right? Real assets, focusing on real things, not derivatives. And derivatives are, like, in the financial industry, derivatives are assets that really you don't own. So for example, like, I don't know if you guys remember CMO, so that collateralized mortgage obligations. But that's an investment that people are like taking loans, and we're going to package all these home loans together, and we're going to sell that as a share of something. Like, that's a derivative. That's not like a real thing, because when you buy a share of that, you're not buying a real house. Oh, yes. Thank you, hubby. So, cash value life insurance. So, one thing that you can do, and I'm going to have my friend Susan on, and we're going to talk more about this, is start to look at how you can create this system for yourself. A couple books that you should read are What Would the Rockefellers Do? That's going to blow your mind. Okay. It's not a big book, it's not a long read. And another one is Be the Bank. Okay. So they talk about how wealthy people, really wealthy people, like people who have like a yacht or something like that, how they are creating generational wealth and keeping their money. So one strategy that they have used is when, and it talks about this in the Rockefeller book. Okay, so there's a family trust, and under that family trust, when a new person in the family is born, they take out a whole life insurance policy with cash value for the maximum amount that they possibly can for that person. The beneficiary is the trust. Okay, so when this person dies, the money goes back into the trust. If this person decides that they want to buy a house, buy a car, start a business, blah, 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 do whatever, they go to the trust and they say, hey, can I borrow this money? And the trust will take a loan out against that cash value policy. So, and here's the deal, it doesn't even really matter if they don't pay back the loan, because by the time that they pass or someone else in the family passes, the trust is the beneficiary of that money. So that is one strategy. But the thing is, by the time that you figure out, like, learn about some of this stuff, it doesn't make sense for you to get into it, because insurance is something where the sooner you buy it, the lesser the premiums and the more advantageous it is for you. So a lot of times people find this out and they're like in their 60s, 70s, and they're like, shoot, why didn't I do this 20 years ago? So my point is, there's all these different strategies where you can make money and not be in the system that is like wanting to move you to this digital currency that's going to keep you contained. Like, this digital currency, and I did a whole video on CBDC that I still need to, of course, edit and put out. I'll get there eventually. But the thing with this central bank digital currency is, and that's what they're moving us towards, and I think part of this chaos is trying to move people towards that digital currency. They can track you, every penny of your spending. They can reach into your bank account and get money if the IRS feels like you haven't paid enough. Can decide how you're going to spend your money. Okay. You bought too much. You're buying half a cow, Mrs. Sexton. Nope. We're turning off your money for that. You can go buy bugs, and we'll let you spend your money on that. That's not freedom. Okay. That's not freedom. And the thing is, I don't know if people have heard about this. So if you have heard about this, I want you to comment below. Okay. And I don't know if people haven't heard about this. And if they haven't, please share this out to people, because we need to be shouting from the rooftops, telling people that this is not a bad idea. I think that people haven't heard about it. I think that people are focused on the now, but here's the deal. If we don't keep an eye on the prize, keep an eye on what is coming. And if you've been following any of this stuff I'm talking about, you can see what's coming. You have some foresight and go, what's going on here? How's life going to be even in 10 years? We will have a hard time undoing some of this stuff that we were asleep at the wheel as citizens and didn't understand that that's what they were doing. And I really think that some of the people in our government, like the Fed, like, who voted for Janet Yellen? Nobody would have, because she's that guidance counselor. Okay. nobody would have voted for her. So if these people, if these jokers who, like, I don't know where they got their master's degree, I don't know where they got their PhD, right? But if these people are going to be speaking for all of us and we're looking at it and we're going, this doesn't make any sense, and we're not even the experts, we have to speak up and we have to say this isn't right. Okay. And if we don't, then think about the system that is going to be loomed over us in 10 years. Think about our kids and what kind of financial system they're going to have to deal with. Like, come on. Like, this is some crazy sci-fi shiznit that's been happening that is unbelievable. Okay, now my blood pressure's up. This is decaf. I had to switch to decaf. So anyway, I'm getting off topic. I just wanted to cover today what happened this week. Do we panic? Do we pull our money out of the banks? And what should we be focused on? Again, immediate safety, security, food, water, blah, 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 blah. If you don't have like a water filter, if you don't have some food stored up, like, that's your assignment. That's right. That's your assignment, is to figure out what you need. After that, we need to be smarter than the average bear, and we need to start thinking about a system for ourselves where our money isn't in the system. It's not in the matrix, not in the financial matrix where any of this manipulation or BS or whatever can devalue our currency. Blah, blah, blah. We can come up with strategies ourselves because we're smart people, right? And we can use some of these systems that we're learning about to create wealth for ourselves. This doesn't happen overnight. It's the long game, but it's worth it. My husband and I have been on this journey for a little while, and we're just now seeing some of these cogs moving. And I can tell you that I'm like, my blood pressure, well, maybe not, it wasn't down yesterday, but, starting to feel good about the fact that some of these things are coming to fruition. So it's not going to take like 5 minutes to do this. This is a really long-term thing, but you have to get started now, and you have to start thinking about this now, because if you don't, and you're like, oh, we'll just do it next week, you're never going to want to. You're never going to want to figure this out. All right. That's it for me, guys. Thank you for being here. If you got into the end, love you. Love you. Thank you for listening to me rant today. Pay attention to what's happening. I'm going to be bringing you more stuff next week. In the meantime, I'm going to go plant carrots today because, that's what I can do. As I'm working on my garden and lowering my blood pressure and not listening to any more of this BS on the media. And don't listen, like, when people are like, oh, this is great. You know better. Come on now. Just don't pay attention to any of that, okay? All right, friends, I'm sending you some love from my corner of the world to yours. Make sure you subscribe and like and share all this to your friends, because I feel like nobody's talking about this except for a select few of us, and we're shouting from the rooftops and getting really tired of doing so. All right, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.